Welcome to Roof to Curb. If you're a foodie for the home, this is the pod for you. On Roof to Curb, we talk about everything in the home industry, including homes, renovation, landscaping, exteriors, and more. Roof to Curb is brought to you by Pull Tab Sports, the best podcast producer in the business. Today guest, Summer Kath, Executive Vice President of Design for Cambria. Summer is the creative force behind all new design launches at Cambria. Summer has been with Cambria for over 20 years and has been part of creating over 200 plus designs. That's a big number, Summer. That's a big number. So tell us a little bit about Summer Kath and her role at Cambria. And you've got quite the journey there, 20 plus years. You've seen a lot change. And I've got a couple little funny stories for you of how I've learned Cambria and all those fun stuff. But please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, that's quite the intro. Thank you. I like to say that Cambria and I have grown up together.
For sure.
Over 20 years ago when, in fact, I was one of Cambria's first customers.
Okay.
I was building my first home, and I think I told you my dad's a cabinet maker. He was kind of looking after the house, and the day I was picking out countertops was the day that Scott Genuine dropped off our first chip box of like 14 Cambria designs.
Love it.
Think back to like Ball of Blue and Cambria and Gold. And I said yes. I chose Cambria for every surface in my starter home, first home I ever built with my, at the time, fiance. And we loved it, put it in, living in our new house, and get a phone call at Broughton looking for a homeowner because there weren't many at the time. Cambria was only in Minnesota, just starting to build the business. And I think my mom answered the phone that day and said, "Oh, my daughter just put Cambria everywhere, and she would love to do this," which was basically a testimonial on a local station. And so I had a camera guy and the director of marketing, Lisa Binsons, came to my house that day. Funny enough, had to do a whole speech on my Cambria as a homeowner. And Lisa stayed at my house for 2 hours drinking coffee and recruited me. And I met Marty Davis 2 weeks later at our IMS show, our showroom grand opening. And it was great. I started in marketing, and at that time, I was employee 30.
Employee 30.
Think about that.
Yeah, what do you think Cambria's up to now?
Over 1,800.
1,800 across the country.
Yeah, over 23 years.
Yeah. And in many markets now.
I mean, North American. Yeah. But growing from that moment to where we are today, it was so much work, but it was so much fun. Some of the folks who Scott Genuine and Bruce Kemper, still at Cambria today, a part of that massive growth. And think about, 23 years ago, first of all, there was not a quartz manufacturing facility in North America, right? So it's not like you're finding employees who have done this before, unless you go. At that time, it was Israel and Spain. Yeah. And Zodiac DuPont in Canada. And so we were all new in this whole industry, which was amazing. And that's the part about, we had a 10-year on being able to manufacture quartz in the United States. We protected that for 10 years and being the only manufacturer. So again, it wasn't competitive, and we were hiring employees that we had to train.
For sure.
That's why you hire really amazing people.
Yeah, there's some great people there. Great people there for, like you said, for longevity. Some of the people you recognize with Bruce Gebhardt and Scott Genuines and Kathy Ordals.
Yeah,
and
who still is attached, even though she's retired.
Right. But people that made good impacts in these markets with Cambria and yourself. So my first recollection of Cambria was at the Metrodome, of course. Right.
Oh, twins.
So the twins, yeah. So Cambria on the backstop, right?
That's right.
And
which we still do.
And I don't think at the time people knew what it was.
No.
They didn't know if it was wine or carpet or what it was. And, aggressively through the process, the company's evolved and been pretty amazing to watch, especially if you go down and tour the plant. Every time you go down there, it's growing.
It is. It's over 1 million square feet today.
It's crazy.
It's unbelievable. And you bring up the people didn't know 20 years ago, Cambria. People hardly knew quartz countertops. 20 years ago, you remember, granite was luxury.
Absolutely.
I mean, that was the market. And
if you went to marble, that was a big deal too.
That took a little bit. I think it was like 08, 09. It really, hit the mainstream. But back then, we were so adamant because of our ownership that when we market Cambria at the Twin Stadium, it was just Cambria. And we have our own suite. It's quite large. And for us, it's a showroom. Yeah. It's a place for us to show off the latest and greatest and entertain, our clients like you.
Yeah. Can you tell the story about why is there a bartender in that suite? Why is there
a bartender that works for Cambria?
Yeah. So I think that's an interesting
Mr. Morton.
Right? Yeah. Mr. Morton or Genuine or some others, right?
Yeah.
But what's the strategy behind that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question because it's unusual. And so what we're talking about is if you go into the Viking suite or the Twins Cambria suite, the bartender that you'll speak to works for Cambria. And that's because we want that person to represent who we are, our company, and to always be selling in a very, relationship way. And if you go up and you order a drink from Scott Genuine, he's been with us for over 20 years. Mm-hmm. He can answer, what is this? It's backlit, which is at the Twin Stadium. This amazing product we haven't even launched yet. And Scott can talk about it authentically. And that's so important.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been in there a handful of times and watched, I know the story. I'm kind of veteran-like with it, right? Because, I'm not surprised by it. And it's the Cambria way. It's a beautiful way to market. It's the strategy, I think, is fantastic. But it's been interesting to watch the interaction from afar of watching new designer come in, trying to learn Cambria, right? Maybe out of town, coming in. And obviously been through some training, things like that. Now you're hosting them at the Twins game and watching the bartender interact with them and trying to correct or educate or influence or just really, really educate, I think, is the biggest thing there, where you hear somebody talk and you're like, no, that's not accurate. And you're like, let me tell you a little bit more about it. Let me give you the straight and narrow so you understand all the positivities of what you're looking at here.
Yeah. I mean, for us, it still is about education, especially today. And I said 20 years ago, there were only, 3 major manufacturers in quartz. Well, as you know, today there are hundreds.
Yeah.
And
competitive.
It's so competitive. And there's a lot of reasons why, because quartz completely took off and everybody wanted to get in a piece of it. But there's no governing body to how quartz is made, all of the quality, the product, all the things that Cambria stands for. And separates us. That's why we removed quality quartz surfaces from our logo. It's just Cambria because we want to stand alone in being, the standard, the premium standard in countertops because of all those things.
I think to that point, it's a great way to do that is trying to stand alone because, if there's a lot of Post-it notes out there, right? But there's only one Post-it.
Yes, that's
Same thing, right? There's only one Cambria. Let's go back a couple of years. You talked about how 30 employees started trying to get these manufacturing machines in. I always say it's like watching cookies getting made. Every time
brownies,
it's a big pan. It's a big pan, right? And you put a bunch of product in there, and then you press it and heat it and polish it and fabricate it, and it's all these great things. So
we're gonna hire you after this.
So I remember going down to the first fabrication shop, low ceilings, really wet, right? Not in
Le Sueur.
It was across the highway.
Yep.
Right? Across 169 on the other side.
Yep.
I remember going down to manufacturing facility in Le Sueur, maybe 300,000 square feet at the time, 200,000 square feet.
Around there.
Now it's up to 1 million. I think there's been 4 additions maybe by now, maybe 5.
5, so we have 6 lines.
So there you go. But that family, the Davis family, proud family in Minnesota, deep Minnesota roots.
St. Peter, Minnesota.
Comes out of there. And they didn't make countertops. They started this because they came from a different industry. Talk a little bit about what the industry that they came from and what they did back then.
Yeah, it's remarkable. Cheese to countertops, we say. The Davis family, hailing back 3 generations. Stan Davis started in the butter business. He had a I think it was a creamery, or I'm not sure what you call the facility, downtown St. Peter. And then his son, Mark Davis, who's Marty's father, kind of took it to a global scale. And they built up this commodity business of processed cheese manufacturing and whey protein as a byproduct. So they built up this fat, through Midwestern hard work, grit, all the things that Cambria stands for was really founded and built at Davisco and parlayed into our business.
For sure.
And 5 years ago, there was a company up in the Iron Range who had purchased this equipment to manufacture quartz countertops, the Breton equipment from Italy. The company was called Technomar, and they had that exclusivity also to do it for 10 years in the US. And they couldn't even launch the business for financial reasons.
Sure, needed some more cash and some money to make it happen.
It wasn't working out, right? It doesn't work out for everybody. To our benefit. So the Davises, I believe, were involved somehow and heard about it on the auction and won.
Okay.
And I think, they obviously were investors in other businesses, and this was a manufacturing business that looked extremely promising with where quartz was in its infancy, at that time, and really what the future could be for that product. And I think also their extreme entrepreneurialism and to be innovative. I think from the beginning, the thought was we're gonna make quartz countertops like nobody can, and like nobody can figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's what we've done.
Yeah, right to the top. So the whey protein would go into cheese.
Well, it's a byproduct of making the cheese. So then they would sell that to like Estee Lauder. You would be surprised at what products take whey protein. Obviously, at the time, the whole Atkins diet and taking in a lot more protein was a huge deal. So they had their own consumer product called BiPro, and they sold this pure whey isolate that apparently it absorbed faster into the body. And so they had this product that was extremely innovative as well.
Yeah. High quality protein.
High quality protein, yes.
So and everybody loves that.
Everybody. Then again, that's a market that is completely flooded.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time. So great story. They go from essentially milking cows, right?
They still own one dairy in New Smyrna. I'm not sure what the town that's like that. But and we used to take our tours to the dairy.
I remember that.
Did you go?
Yeah. I think the number I heard was 3,000 head of cattle got milked 3 times a day. And
is it on the carousel?
I got to watch the carousel. And the other interesting part is the interaction with the University of Minnesota.
Yeah.
Right? The birthing center and all the education and the training partner that the Davis family has had with the U of M and still does, right? I mean, still has a long connection
and
with
they're
the
alumni.
Yeah.
They went through that whole food science program. So.
Yeah. So it's been great. When you look at the staple of the Davis family, being in Minnesota and proud carriers of the Minnesota flag. So it's been great. Roof to Curb is sponsored by Will Anderson Insurance. I want you to try a quick exercise for me. Think of your insurance person. Okay. Can you picture them? It's probably some person from high school or the old neighborhood that you no longer keep in touch with. Insurance is too important for the status quo. Isn't it time you switch to one of the best? Will Anderson can help you with all of your home, auto, and commercial insurance needs. He'll give you a fair solution. He'll be there to pick up the phone when you need him most, and he'll explain a complicated business like he's reading a children's book. Reach out to Will Anderson, and we bet you he'll save money too. Call or text Will for a quote at 612-361-7283 or visit willandersonagency.com. Roof to Curb podcast sponsored by Duke Cannon. Don't trust your mutton chops and mustaches to just any brand. Duke Cannon Supply Company makes hardworking grooming products for hardworking guys, and their products will help you keep your facial hair in championship form. From their beard wash and balms to beard oil, they have your back and your face covered. Duke Cannon, work harder, smell better. Stock up on DukeCannon.com and use BEARD10 for 10% off your next order. Duke Cannon is an official partner of the Minnesota Wild. I think another thing to talk briefly as we're on this Cambria story is there's a charity involvement as well.
Oh my gosh. We now call that philanthropic arm Cambria Cares. And it really started even back, you talked about the Twins. Do you remember when John Gordon would say, and there's another Cambria home run?
I did.
And every time we donated to Boulder Options, which is the youth mentoring. So we've always been very involved with organizations, Northside Boxing, which is an amazing program to get kids off the street.
Yeah. A lot of youth initiatives, right?
A lot of youth initiatives. We got into putting on camps for kids with juvenile arthritis called Camp Cambria, which you've probably been to one of our concerts on Lake Minnetonka with Steven Tyler, Big and Rich.
A lot of people.
Zach
Brown, I think, was there one year.
Zach Brown was there one year. We raised a lot of money, and we hosted camps in Minnesota and Toronto. They were great because these were kids that couldn't go to normal camp. They need too much care and assistance. So they were able to just be kids and have fun at camp and not worry because they were all the same. So it didn't matter. But today, actually, I was excited to tell you about this new initiative we've been working on.
Please do.
Yeah, it's youth mentoring, but it has to do with our trades.
Okay.
So, and I am interested in if this is something that you guys have an initiative for. As we look at kids graduating from high school, there's been a huge decline in the trades. I'm sure you have a hard time hiring and, finding youth or younger for, even electrician or plumbing or all the trades. So there's a huge initiative with the Boys and Girls Club. And the one we're involved with is in Dean County in Madison.
Okay.
Because one of our sales reps that lives in that area is on the board, she brought this opportunity.
That's great.
A gentleman, Mr. McKenzie, donated a facility to the Boys and Girls Club in that area where they can do workforce training.
Wow.
Of trades.
Yeah, that's excellent.
And so we gave product for the whole facility, and we are sponsoring this program for the trades to teach electrician, plumbing, building, all those things to high school kids.
That's
to get them interested in going into that area of work.
And how young do they start? This
is high school.
Yeah, so it can be freshman year.
Yeah, exactly. Of course.
Yeah, that's great. All those initiatives, obviously we have Custom One Charities and it's youth initiative based, and we're trying to invest in the communities as well and trying to help, our youth be better people. Myriad of ways that we do that with Custom One Charities, but there's some alignment there. So we'll definitely talk offline about it.
I love that.
So we talked about our Chicago dinner earlier of our first time we met back at Gibson's in Chicago, and it was
I was so young back then.
It was for the remodeling show. I think was the reason we were there, for the remodeling show, and maybe NKBA was part of that at that time. And talk about some of the players that the Genuines and the Gebhardts and even the Joe Marceaus of the world and some of those guys. But that was fun. Let's switch gears and help the consumer a little bit. Design trends and why 200 plus designs. Summer, like that's an impressive number, and I think that probably encompasses all of them except for 14. Probably right. The first 14 were probably right there. But,
when I started. Yeah, when I started, well, let's talk about that. When I started at Cambria, I started in marketing. And so I kind of maneuvered my way around Cambria in so many different marketing positions, business development. And about 17 years ago is when I got invited in. So this is right around the time when we're launching Victoria, if you remember. Yeah. This is right when we were...
Victoria was brown and black and
things.
Cream.
So let's talk trends. So 20 years ago, I was talking granite was luxury. And if you remember, it was brown walls and earth tones everywhere. And maybe, black granite, cherry cabinets and oak cabinets and just brown.
Honey oak and clear maple.
Oh my God. Oh my God. And that was what was current at the time. That's what everybody wanted. And so when I got invited into the back room to start to design with Cambria, at that time, I didn't go to school to design anything. So I just happened to really love fashion and I have style, all those things. So maybe that's why I got invited in. But at that time, I was young and hungry and excited and curious. And to me, that was so exciting. And basically, we were only in Minnesota. And so at that time, it was really studying what were the popular granites and what do kitchens look like and how can Cambria develop a product that would be beautiful and look like what we say glacial movement.
Sure.
So, the first 14 look like kitty litter.
I always say it looks like oatmeal, right? It looks a little oatmeal, a little chunkier.
And the same color.
Yeah.
And reds and blues, and it was crazy. But, at that time, it was time to get serious about, what is the future and how do we really create a quartz product that has the depth, the movement, and the colorways of, what's current today. What does everybody want? But where's the puck going? And if you look at Cambria's history, our palette, and how it's evolved with, I say quote unquote trends, because people don't want to pick a countertop that's trendy. My job is not to create something that's trendy. I'm not on the runway
good design versus trend, right? We've talked about that in the past of, there's good design that is timeless.
That's right.
Trends only last for a period of time.
That's right. And we need to live with those trends that are coming in and out. It could be trends of wall colors or what type of plumbing fixtures people are using. Because right now, it's brass and it's gold. And back then, it was oil rub bronze. Sure. Which Canterbury nailed it with that. That's one of Cambria's designs, back in 2005. Right. When we were in Chicago.
No, it's been crazy. So you get involved and you help formulate, and you talk about trends, and you get to travel a little bit. So you go to see some pretty high-end not trend shows, but design shows. Yeah. Talk a little bit about those locations and what happens at those places.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, we always have to design things that are timeless and not too fashion forward. However, we need to stay ahead of what's coming. And usually Europe sets the tone in fashion, and everything trickles down from fashion into interiors. Yeah. And so
we always say that the fashion starts there, right? The trend or the design. Yeah. Then it hits the coast.
Yes.
And then it moves in.
That's right. We get it last here in the middle.
Yeah. I think music works that way too. But
the thing is, I think it's changed. I think it moves faster because we're such a global economy because of the internet and TikTok and all of this. I think things are rapidly moving, but you can't take in inspiration through your device like you can when you go to these design shows. You have to. So I go to Maison Objet in Paris and Salone in Milan.
Yeah,
and
beautiful cities.
From walking around and taking in the architecture, I mean, you can't even see it all at once. Every time you go, you'll see something new that you're inspired by. And then these shows and the people that are working there and the sophistication, you cannot get that on your device. You have to immerse yourself in it.
What do they do at the show, Summer? What is it that, there's definitely sophistication. There's definitely an initiation of design that takes place there. Walk us through a couple hours at one of these shows. What takes place?
Yeah, I think one of those mind-blowing shows is the design show in Milan. It is the largest, let's just call it a trade show. It will take you 3 to 4 days to take in the whole thing.
Amazing.
And when I say trade show, some people have been to the Home and Garden show where they erect these 10 by 10s. These are freestanding showrooms. Wow. Literally, like a builder has to build the walls and the partitions, and there's glass. And, it is a showroom that is showcasing whether it's furniture or appliances or lighting or, all these products from around the world are there. They're just well-designed spaces that are so inspiring. You see things that you've never seen before.
Sure.
And this show is 10 days.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, what they invest to erect these showrooms, I can't even. We've never, Cambria isn't there yet.
Yeah. So what we know locally, right, or even across country, is the Builder Show, the International Builder Show, and the NKBA big show that KBIS down at Vegas and Orlando and rotates a little bit. But Cambria's booth, kudos to you guys, was probably the best booth that you guys have ever had this past year in Vegas at the February show. So, it seems like you guys are starting to become definitely a leader, not only in the countertop space, right, but also across the industry. Kohler always has a great booth and is kind of like the one to shoot for, if you will. But you guys are right on their heels, I think, with the booth that you guys had last year.
I love to hear that because absolutely that's our goal. You said it earlier, it's the Cambria Way. Mm-hmm. And I think Kohler won Best in Show this last year.
Sure.
And for good reason.
Yeah,
I mean,
without a doubt.
It's unbelievable. They are an advanced company with 30,000 employees that's been around, 3 times, 150. They celebrated their 150 this last year. But for us, that's a bar that we just keep shooting for.
It's a good partner to be close to, that's for sure.
They do feature a lot of Cambria in their booth.
They do. Mm-hmm. They do. I saw that this year as well. So, that's awesome. So you go to the shows, you get inspired. Now what?
Since I've been doing it for so long, it's kind of a constant, always there's ways that we are evaluating the palette constantly. And because we've matured as a company, we have a lot more resources in people. So we have a product marketing team that is supporting our efforts and understanding our palette. What's happening with our palette? Are there trends? Are there things moving? History doesn't always dictate future, but it's really important for us to assess and always pay attention. Also for suspending designs.
Sure.
Which now when you get to 200, you have to.
You got to start retiring some.
You have to, because there's only 6 lines.
Yeah.
And if we want to keep innovating out there in the plant, we can't be making some of the designs that don't sell as much. And then also just kind of in my process is paying attention. So the palette, where are we missing out? Where are there holes? Where, you might be as a builder being asked for a product that we don't have. And that could be happen when that happens in multiple areas, across the country. That's when we really have to pay attention.
Find a need. Yep.
But yeah, exactly. And then also we're always looking at the future. So going to those shows is really setting the strategy for what is coming next year, what's in the next 2 years, and how do we need to evolve our technology to achieve a look we maybe can't make today. And so it's a constant market trends, future strategy, and technology, and all those have to work together.
Teeter-totter there.
That's right.
Yeah, it does seem like, though, with Cambria, the advancement of technology and sophistication has been phenomenal, and it's happening at a very fast pace. I don't think people realize how fast you've gone from 14 designs to 200 plus.
It's only made possible, number one, because of the investments the owners of Cambria are willing to make in the technology and in the people. The engineers and the genius, minds that I get to work with every day, it would never be, we'd never be where we are without that.
No.
And that propels us forward. And everybody's discipline, I think discipline is a huge word at Cambria, in our everyday lives. That's gotten us where we are today.
For sure. In markets, right? So it's not just the Twin Cities market. Where do I find Cambria? And talk a little bit about, you mentioned Toronto before. That was one of the newer markets at the time.
Yeah.
But talk about maybe where you guys have chosen to go market-wise outside of the state of Minnesota. Where and why?
I think, from the beginning, obviously, world domination was top of mind. But we grew through a network of fabricators. And now we own our own distribution centers. I think we're up to 25, which is amazing because for us, that route to market is so important in maintaining the quality when we move around our slabs rather than letting go when we deliver a slab. So we are now available in North America through our network of distributors. Okay. Those distributors are all regionally focused so that we can, fully cover. And then they sell to what we call certified fabricators. So if you live in Florida, that if you're working with your builder, you are renovating your house and you're maybe working with a kitchen and bath, they're connected to fabricators that carry Cambria.
Sure.
But those fabricators would have been vetted out or are working with us closely.
Certified.
Yeah, to make sure that, the quality is of the Cambria standard.
All the standards are met. Yeah, you have to, right? If not, it's not worth the risk. How about install opportunities? So we talk about products, 25 different fabricators now. We can get the product anywhere in the country, right? So if I'm in Idaho, I can get it. If I'm in New York, I can get it. If I'm in Miami or Palm Desert, I think there's a pretty large fabricator out in that area, right? But I start seeing the product in different areas. It's just not countertops. I just don't see it in the kitchen or the bathroom. So talk a little bit about applications and some of these other areas. We've got the Cambria Style magazine on the counter on the table, and the full backsplash, right, was another advancement. So talk a little bit, Summer, about just where can I put the product? It's just not for it's just not countertops. Where else can I do?
Pretty much everywhere. Cloud your whole house.
Yeah.
So yes, so beyond countertops, we are now seeing the full height backsplash, which is amazing. And I think what I love about that is when you walk into a kitchen, especially if you use one of our bold veining patterns, it just becomes a centerpiece. It's just bam.
It's art form.
It's
it truly
piece of art right in front of you. Yep. And that's also for a fireplace. A huge fireplace would be beautiful. It's like art above your fireplace. We also love talking about doing a full shower. I'm sure you probably do a lot of.
Well, we do. and we've got a project out in Long Lake, so just outside of Wayzata. It's called Avavetta. It's row housing. So we have a 6-unit and a 5-unit.
Nice.
11 units total. I think we've sold 7 or 8 since June 1st. It was on the Artisan Tour. And those homes and those buildings have full Cambria in every piece of it, including the showers.
The shower.
Yep.
It is such
curbs and showers.
What a good selling point for, saying no grout. You don't have to worry about it. It's so easy to clean.
It's clean. It's inspiring. It feels right.
Yeah.
All those fun things.
Yeah. And then tie it into, you can buy Cambria tiles. So do complimentary tiles on the floor in your luxury spa.
Right.
And even your bath surround. I mean, we can clad.
And I'm not limited by size, right?
No.
If I want to do 4x4s or 6x6s
that's
or
right.
8x8s or 12s
custom
by
size
24s, that's Fabrication Shop. And,
that's right.
And Le Sueur, and St. Peter. No, where's the location?
The Fab Shop is in Belle Plaine.
Belle Plaine. I was all the
cities
all
going
down 169. But it's amazing to watch how that works. And applications, you brought up the full backsplash. We've used that. We've used the waterfall edges, which is also on the cover of Cambria Style for the piece that you brought in. We've done showers. We've done fireplaces. It's been amazing. And when we show those in a parade home or artisan tour or any of the home tours, it's amazing to see the feedback.
I love hearing that.
In summer, I tell people, not only is it the product, but if I look at the install, the fit and finish of Cambria versus competitors, you can't beat it. When I look at miters and seams and edges, people have a hard time figuring out where they're at. It's so good.
And I think, so here we're going to the education, because that's something that I think homeowners and consumers don't even think about. They probably think stone is stone is stone, fabricate and put it in. It's all going to be the same, but it's not. And another kind of point of differentiation for Cambria versus other quartz, and this, is we have the service after the sale, right? So free of charge. So I think we did a whole analysis on if you were to put in a competitor and you have chips, every time they come back to fill your chips and for that service appointment, you end up spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
Right.
We actually did a case study on one homeowner would have spent $700 additionally for all the chips they had. With Cambria, those are all free.
Yeah.
So when you're looking
and there's not many of them either.
No, there's not. Yeah. And that was probably a crazy chef. Who knows?
Yeah. Banging pots and pans.
Who knows? If you have that straight edge, it can happen. But I think you also have to consider, when you look at the price tag for Cambria, you have to also look at your lifetime investment in Cambria.
Yeah, and I think that investment is hard to beat. It's really hard to beat to the competitors.
There we go. I drop mic.
We're good. For sure. It's a leader in the industry in its category. There's no doubt about it. And I encourage people to get down to a couple showrooms. I believe we can get out to Plymouth, we can get to IMS, and we can get down to Minneapolis.
Yep, downtown.
Right, downtown.
And I'm sure this is a global podcast. So if you're in Ohio, Cleveland, if you go to CambriaUSA.com, you put in your zip code or postal if you're in Canada, and it will spit out all the dealers near you and showrooms and locations. All of our
easy to find.
All of our distribution centers have showrooms in them where you can go see full slabs.
Sure.
So those are great to visit.
Yeah, and plenty of slabs and plenty of designs, and it's always nice to see them on a larger sample size. Talk about a little bit. You go to Milan, you go to Paris, you see design and you see trends start coming over to North America. talk a little bit about what do you think the future of surfaces is when in regards to home? It could be commercial, it could be residential. But what do you think is going to happen? What's our crystal ball for surfaces in Cambria? And we talk about all these different install applications, but are we going to build airplanes out of Cambria? What's next?
I wish we are in airplanes, actually.
Yeah. You were for a lot.
We can make Cambria very thin, which is great for airplanes and for yachts.
There you go.
Sidebar.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start in 2016. Do you remember 2016 when the all white out kitchen was everything?
Sure.
I'm sure you installed a lot of white kitchens.
Yep. Everybody loves the white.
That was the year when I went to Milan. I walked in to Salone dei Mobili and into your kitchen, which is the kitchen and bath portion. Everything was black and opulent and royal and regal feeling, and kind of started to sparkle a little bit.
Deep dark colors.
Holy smokes. It blew my mind because here we are in America celebrating the all white everything. And
don't do it for too long.
I mean, and it's not, and I'll talk about white's not going away. It's changing.
It's traditional.
It's getting more sophisticated in a different way. But when I got back, immediately I was like, we have to work on some more opulent. And it's funny, I had a designer tell me, because we bring designers in from all over every week, and I get to meet with them, which I'm getting feedback, and they're giving me ideas and all that. And this woman said, I remember back then because you guys started coming out with darker designs and no one else was.
People thought you're crazy, right?
Yes, including my boss.
Sure. Yeah.
And so, we're willing to take some of those risks based on the kind of seeing what's coming. The thing that I learned in that is it doesn't always express itself the same way. Like America will never have the true Euro kitchen.
Translation.
It translates. Yeah. So we are selling more black countertops, and we have some great options in that area. And you're seeing that contrast of a white cabinet and a black countertop. Or lighter, and we're definitely seeing more of that Scandinavian white oak. I mean, that's happening right now with the white countertop. So it's and you're feeling this too, I'm sure, is things are warming up.
Yeah.
It's warming up, but it's still sophisticated. It's not like, back in 2002 when it was the earth tones and brown walls. It's still light, bright, and airy, but it's warmer.
I think it's a lot warmer. Yeah, and I love the mix of paint and woods and metal.
Yeah.
I love that look.
Texture and layers. So now do I transition to what do I see coming?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, when I was in Milan this April, everything had texture and layers. The fabrics, the textiles, the walls, the cabinets. Like you're probably seeing the Cerust. We are now celebrating the oak wood grain with the paint. Remember when we cover it? Hated it?
No, people, how do I, they spend money to cover up a beautiful species, right?
And now we're celebrating it. And also like the slat wall, we're seeing the beadboard on the cabinets. It's just dimensional and layers. And so we're really focused on that as well. You've probably seen our collections, the Inverness, which is the, debossed veining, the texture.
I don't think you could have created that 5-10 years ago, right?
We launched it last year, and it was an innovation that came through all of Cambria's learnings. And that they all start to pile on top of each other because you just get stronger, smarter. You learn to tinker and experiment, and then, oh my gosh, our alloys. Who thought you could have, metal in the vein? Yeah,
peanut butter and chocolate tastes pretty good. Yeah, so
right.
But yeah, it's been amazing to watch, and I do think, to your point, the textures and the layers and the warmth, in every client we're working with right now, like there's not many boring clients, I would say, where, white works and throw a little color on the wall. People are getting way more sophisticated in the requests and their desires, and our outputs of those products are becoming so much more amazing. So it's been fun. How about a little industry knowledge? You guys work with a lot of builders. You work with a lot of remodelers. You work with a ton of designers. Mm-hmm. You guys are educating people nonstop. You guys talk a little bit about the industry and direction and overall, and tying Cambria into that. Where do you see the future going? Is Cambria going to have 50 fabricators? Is the industry going to decline? Is it going to increase? What do you guys see in your forecast when you're mapping out the growth of Cambria? And I do know that Cambria has been pretty aggressive with their strategy and their growth model. So they're not one to sit back. I know that.
Yeah, that strategy will never change. I can tell you that today.
Yeah.
And just to let you know, when you say 50 fabricators, those are distribution centers. We have thousands of fabricators that cover North America. Just so you listen, don't worry about that.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's easily to find, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But we believe that there is still so much growth for Cambria. And I think it's growth in stealing share. And a part of the stealing share, just from the thousands of quartz companies out there, is that education. Like we talked about the Cambria difference, all the things we've been talking about, the why, the investment for Cambria and everything that comes with it, the lifetime warranty, which you don't get that with all of our competitors, for sure.
No, you don't.
And it's transferable. So you sell your house, it goes to the new homeowner. That's huge. But we are going to continue
Repeat
to grow.
that somewhere. I don't think people realize that. So you're telling me if I buy a home from a neighbor, a friend in another city, and it has Cambria in it, what do I get with it?
So if let's say you are a realtor and you buy a house and you want to sell it, or an investor, let's call it. If you put Cambria in that house, it has a warranty that stays with that Cambria.
Transferable.
So you sell that.
Yep.
To a homeowner.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith come in. They chip the countertop.
Free service to fix that.
Free service. And my guess is there's not another company in that segment of the industry that has that.
There is not one company that has a comprehensive, like full circle service plan that we have with that transferable warranty.
That's hard to beat.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. You got to think for the future, right?
Yeah. So the future. So, yeah, what do you think? You're gonna have 300 designs? You're gonna have is there a max? Like you can only create so many. Is there,
there's no max.
You drop the 10, you add 10, you drop 10, you add 10. Is that kind of the?
There's not a formula.
Okay.
Other than the formula really has to be to keep our eye on the existing palette and making sure that the variety that we offer, because we at Cambria want to be your only product. If you're a kitchen and bath or you're a builder, we want you to put Cambria forward first and have the full offering for all the different clients you're going to have. Whether it's you have a very traditional who still want Torquay or Berwyn, which are designs that were launched in 2011 and 15, or you want the cutting edge with the texture, the alloys. But we need to maintain that assortment and making sure that if there are designs that aren't current, aren't selling, then those will then get, they fall off. Yep. And we have to do that. But, we will continue to launch new designs every year. There is not a certain number we're trying to get to. We're basically in our R&D and development process. Our mission is to only launch designs that we believe will be extremely successful and game-changing for Cambria.
So my guess is in the R&D, and I've been in the lab, it's impressive. You talk about strength, you talk about FDA, you talk about all these fun things that make those tops, and the product of Cambria is so amazing. If you're launching, say you launch 14, right? New launch happens up, you got 14 coming. How many did it take to get to 14? Did you start with 50 or 30 or 20 or?
Yeah, we constantly have what we call projects or designs going through the pilot lab, which is where we're experimenting before we go run it out in the plant. So, to get 14, we may be working on 30 projects. Okay. And a lot of the time it has to do with the timeline. If we decide we need to launch on this day specifically because we know that the absorption rate is much better in the spring, et cetera.
Sure.
The timeline may determine the number because as you're going through that, it's like an artist, right? It's a development process and you're not sure what the end product is going to look like. And like I said, we're not going to launch it unless it's amazing. So it's more important about the quality than the quantity.
Doing it right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's great. What's next for Cambria? Anything else that we need to know or the consumer needs to know of what's coming from Cambria? What can they put a stamp on the calendar for and say, I can't wait till that happens with Cambria?
I have a date. On September 13th, we are going to be launching new designs. And if you follow Cambria on our Instagram, So that's if you follow us, you will have seen some of our teaser videos.
I've seen them.
And you probably saw that there's a little more texture coming. So
yeah, a little pops of color in there, and some beautiful veining. So it's amazing. I would tell you, Summer, that we've been partnering with Cambria for a long time. You've been a wonderful partner from tip to toe in that organization. We've got some longevity with it. I would struggle to build beautiful homes without your product in it. So thank you for that. Thank you for attending Roof to Curb, and we wish you guys the best moving forward with those designs. So Summer Kath, Executive Vice President of Design for Cambria. Thanks for coming out.
Todd. This was fun.
Thanks for coming out to Roof to Curb.